I'd like to welcome everybody back today to Alabama Care. We have the pleasure of having Mrs. Leslie Dawson with us today. Mrs. Dawson is the Business Relations Program Manager at ADRS. And today we're going to be talking about how COVID-19 has impacted the workplace. And at this point, I'd like to hand it over. Mrs. Dawson, if you would introduce yourself.
Hi, great. This is very nice to be here today and appreciate you having us to join you. I am, as you said, Leslie Dawson. I am the statewide administrator of the Business Relations Program for the Alabama Department of Rehabilitation Services, and that would be the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation.
And this is Mrs. Dawson's second time on a broadcast with us. The first time was at the Homewood office in Birmingham, Alabama. And Mrs. Dawson, how long have you been with ADRS?
I've actually been with the agency for 27 years. I started off as a vocational rehabilitation counselor and then moved over into the business relations program probably back in 2004, 2005. And then became the state administrator in 2017.
So quite a history there, and state administrator since 2017. Now, what exactly does the business relations program do?
So within the vocational rehabilitation program, so very briefly, vocational rehabilitation is a program that works with individuals who have an injury, an illness, or a disability that is preventing them from working in jobs or in a career of their choosing. And so the program works with individuals and helps them to acquire the skills, training, or resources needed in order to go to work. So the business relations program works in partnership with companies to learn more about what they're needing as far as skills in their workforce, employees, new hires, or in helping them to retain current workers whose job is impacted by an injury, illness, or disability.
I think it's really important to have that relationship with employers so that you can kind of help how that directs the program. Because if you're teaching, how to get a job for a specific avenue and the employers aren't looking for that, then it's not meeting that demand there.
Absolutely.
Now, how many people are served through the business relations program?
So, well, if we look at vocational rehab as a whole, because that's kind of where we get the individuals that we work with. So on any given year, we probably work with anywhere from 20 to 25,000 Alabamians who have a disability. And when I talk about disability, or we look at disability, I think it's important to mention that there is a broad range for what classifies as a disability. So there's a lot of programs that have a lot of different definitions of disability, but basically to qualify for the vocational rehab program, you have to have a physical or mental impairment that, again, substantially limits your ability to work, and you would benefit in terms of going to work if you received vocational rehab services. So that would be the eligibility for the program. And we work with students with disabilities all the way up until, somebody's at an age where they just no longer care to work. And then again, the range of disability can range from learning disability to diabetes to multiple sclerosis, hearing impairment, visual impairment, paraplegia, quadriplegia. It basically just runs the gamut.
Mm-hmm. And those are individualized services. So you guys meet with them one-on-one and really go through what it looks like to help them get employment there. Now, you said there are things for students. How young will you start to work with an individual?
Well, we actually start working with students as early as 9th grade. If they have a disability or a impairment that is going to potentially allow them to be eligible for VR services as they progress through their high school years. So we try to get them as early as 9th grade. We do some pre-employment services with them, maybe career exploration, just learning some basic etiquette, the life skills that are needed for employment. And then as they progress through high school, then we'll bring them further into the program and provide more job specific or job training skills. And we call those transition services to transition them from high school into the world of work. And that may include some short-term training after high school. It might include apprenticeship programs and even some college training after high school.
Now, what do you see if someone has been receiving services at 9th grade when they hit the transitional services? Do you see a big difference there? Like if I was a parent and I had a son or daughter that was a freshman in high school, and I was thinking about seeing if they could get some of this employment services, but I wanted to wait a little bit maybe to the transitional. Do you see that they have a better success through transitional if they start younger?
Actually, yes. I firmly believe that there is a greater success because you're instilling that knowledge that, hey, I'm a young person with a disability and there are multiple possibilities for employment for me. And so once you instill that knowledge and that desire, then you have the motivation. And then throughout the high school years, what we are able to do through our rehabilitation counselors is guide that student onto a career path that is more, that is appropriate for them, that is going to open more doors and opportunities for them. I hate to use the term realistic, but you have to be realistic at certain times. And again, it's what are these resources that are now available to the students? We could do summer work experiences. We could do pre-apprenticeship, which is going ahead and looking at some potential employers to hire them once they're out of high school. And then while they're working through their high school years, focusing on maybe volunteering at those places of employment or similar areas, and then doing some work experience during the summertime.
Yeah, I think I'll say kind of in the system or receiving services at the youngest age possible will make you more flexible there, will make you more readily to use those services. But also, I think you hit it on the head there, is changing that mindset, of you will be employed and we can start doing this. And just to see that person grow through that mindset at an earlier age will start to snowball. And that snowball keep getting bigger, and then they'll have like, well, I want to do this instead,
Right.
Now, on the other side of that, we have individuals that are receiving services, but we also have businesses that are being connected with. And how many businesses do you assist each year?
We assist anywhere from 1,200 to about 1,500 Alabama businesses each year. And we're located basically all over the state. And we have about 20 something local offices. We work also out of the career centers. And so we are in those local areas. We work with the local businesses. We work with small, medium, and large businesses, and just, depending on what their needs are at the time, and providing some assistance to the business.
Now, who would you say is one of the biggest employers that hire through ADRS?
Actually, I would say it's your small to medium-sized businesses. And I think the reason for that is because with a small to medium-sized business, there is not a very large human resource office. And so you typically have one person that's responsible for the hiring and the benefits and everything that goes along with, bringing new people on board. And so any assistance and additional, services, incentives for hiring, things like that are very beneficial to businesses that are small to medium size. Now, we have recently seen a increase in the larger businesses, especially the manufacturers, the automotive industry, and the healthcare industry that are looking to expand the labor pool that they draw from, and so we have seen a greater outreach from those size companies.
I always think the best way to do it is to find somewhere you'd really like to work, find out who the gatekeeper is or the decision maker, and have a great relationship with them.
Right.
Because if you can find that decision maker, you don't have to go through a whole HR department, like you said, multiple interviews. If you really hit it off with that person that can hire you on the spot, then just focus on that. And that more than likely is a small to medium-sized business in your local community, in your local township, that you may know, that you probably frequent. Maybe you go and eat there every week or every month. And so reach out to them and start there if you want to do that. I think it's a great idea.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we've had quite a bit happen in the last year and a half with this pandemic and COVID-19, and a lot of people staying home from work or not able to get work. And so how has COVID-19 had an impact on the business relations program at ADRS?
I think COVID has definitely impacted the business relations program, just as it has every place. Thinking back to March of last year, when the governor sent out the orders for safer at home and stay at home and things, and everything just came to a halt for several weeks. I think at that point in time, not only did our program, but a lot of the businesses and other programs around the state just kind of said, what do we do? We can't just stay at home. We still have to assist individuals, and businesses have certainly were like, we still need to be open. So, I think after that initial period of, okay, everybody stays at home, and then things started to slowly come back. I think that it was very interesting. We saw, I think, the same type of pattern that a lot of people experience. So for our consumers, we saw the layoffs occur. We did see hiring absolutely come to a standstill. But as the manufacturers and healthcare industry, of course, never closed, but as the manufacturers opened their doors and a lot of businesses started to open up, but maybe just had pickup or delivery services, what we started to see was that things sort of maintained. Like, I'll give you an example. In the automotive industry or the manufacturing industry, there was not a lot of new hiring. There were some layoffs of maybe temporary employees and that sort of thing, but they kept a core group of employees, and the shift rotations were different, and your professional positions saw more work from home. And as things picked up, I think that they were still very cautious. And with our services and what we provide to businesses, one of our main incentives or really creative programs that we do is what we call a pre-hire paid work experience. And this is an opportunity for an individual with a disability to basically try out a job. And it's also an opportunity for a business to try out a person with a disability. And in that connection there's not a job offer, there's not a job placement. So a lot of the business were like, you know what, we only need who we need at our job site to prevent spreading of COVID-19. And so a lot of those pre-hire work experiences came to a stop. Some of the services that we do, well, a lot of the services that we do with our transition students in high school also came to a stop. And that was, of course, for, precautionary purposes. But those have also been very slow to start back. So we saw that sort of change. And we actually had a pretty strong work from home program. We worked with a couple of companies on a national level where, the calls that you get when it's like, this call will be monitored for quality assurance. So we were working very closely with a company that hired a lot of the quality assurance folks. And when other big companies like your cable companies and credit card companies, when they started working from home, they had more people to answer the phone and to do that quality assurance. So we had to actually help a lot of our consumers who had been laid off find other work from home opportunities, which was great though. They had some transferable skills. So we were able to kind of help in that situation.
I will say we've haven't been doing much in the past year out on the road, and normally we're in person, and we're starting to do that more. But the work from home was kind of nice for a few weeks, maybe to like a month. But after that, it's like I'm ready to get back into it.
Right.
But I think a lot of the agencies and businesses are very cautious because you're just not sure. It's something I've never experienced before. They say like the Spanish flu, but that was back in what, 1919 or something, like
Yes,
1917,
exactly.
way back.
Yeah.
So it's something that we're not familiar with, and just being cautious through that. Now, you mentioned that some of the services had to kind of come to a stop there during that time. Did you notice that individuals that receiving services, they were quick or kind of picked it up right where they left off, or do they have to step back a little bit to kind of revamp up to where they were?
Actually, that's a great question. We have seen a drop in individuals coming in or needing or seeking assistance in employment. I think that does have to do with the fact that the population of individuals that we work with are people with disabilities, and certain disabilities are at a greater risk of, having complications if they, get COVID. And so I think that they just basically hunkered down, stayed at home, stayed well, that sort of thing. I think that with the vaccinations now getting out there, and definitely the last, this last push, especially for individuals with disabilities, I think we'll start to see more individuals coming and seeking employment. I think that the stimulus checks had an impact. I'm not going to say that unemployment increases had an impact, because we were working with individuals who were already unemployed. And so the unemployment increases really didn't have that much of an impact. However, I think as with the majority of the population, what we saw is that people realized, hey, you know what? The money, it's not there, whether it's income, that sort of thing. And they learn to do more with less. And I think that, society as a whole cut out a lot of the fringe benefits and started bartering. I know a lot of people that bartered. Hey, I can do this for you if you can do this for me. And it really has turned into, a bartering society right now, I think.
I like it. Yeah.
So, yeah, right. Works great, except for employers, because they're like, yeah, I can't barter. I need employees. And so I think that that's one thing that we're seeing with the businesses that are coming to us now, saying, hey, we need employees. We're desperate. And that bartering system is still going on. So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I cut you off. I apologize.
Oh, well, I was going to say, I think that what we will start to see now that the hospitality industry is opening back up, and I was listening recently on the news radio that, the sports venues, they're going to start opening up. They're not going to have restrictions on the number of games or people into the stadiums. Same thing with vacationing. So now that has started to open up, and people are like, I might want to take a trip or go on vacation. Now they're going to need some money in the pocket. And so I think that employers are going to start seeing an increase in people coming back to work. But
I think they will too. I think people are kind of, they want to get back out. They want to get to life, we'll say like normal life a year ago. And in order to do that, you have to have consistent income and be a productive member of society. I think you're going to see a lot more people joining the workforce again. And speaking of the games, I actually went up with my girlfriend and my brother to a Predators game last week. So we went up to Nashville and saw an ice hockey game. So they're starting to open back up again in these venues you talk about. But that costs money to get up there. So
It does. It does. And something else I think that's interesting is, when the hospitality industry came to a halt, and they definitely had to lay off employees, and now it's like they're like, hotels especially, like, we've got to have employees because people are now traveling, and they're now looking for more hotel staff, housekeepers, the restaurants, within the hotels and places like that as well.
now,
So there are jobs out there.
with hiring, are you noticing that more people that are looking for employment are asking questions about PPE regulations for an employer? Do they have a preference? Like if they're looking for employment, do they ask questions like, well, what do you guys provide for your employees for PPE? Are you having people concerned about that?
Um, Honestly, not so much. And I think the reason for that is because PPE, from what I've seen, it's a personal preference. So some people are like, nope, not going to wear a mask. Don't have to wear them. Not going to wear them. Right. Some people are like, I don't care. I want to wear a mask. I'm going to wear a mask. And so a lot of businesses are still requiring their employees, just for their safety, to have the PPE. Now, individuals with disabilities may require different types of protective equipment. Maybe somebody who is hard of hearing or deaf will need managers or supervisors or people that communicate a lot with them, may need masks that have the clear shield around the lips, so that they can see to read lips, which is difficult anyway, but the facial expressions and that sort of thing. And the people with respiratory illnesses are going to need to have a different type of mask. So they may ask for an accommodation in the type of PPE that's provided. But yeah.
Now, from an employer perspective, do you notice that employers are requiring people to get the COVID vaccine?
Well, interesting question. So I've been reading some articles, and there are some employers that are going to require that. I think there's even some legislation now in the state of Alabama that may impact an employer's ability to require that. I think that more employers are looking at providing incentives for their employees. I know that our agency provides incentives for our staff to get the vaccination, and now the governor has encouraged a lot of the other state agencies to look at what incentives can you provide within the legal realm for your state employees to get vaccines.
What would be an example of an incentive?
An example of an incentive would probably be paid time off to go get the vaccine. If somebody is experiencing, the effects of the vaccine the day after, then maybe some paid time off to do better, or to recuperate, I guess you could say, from those adverse reactions from the vaccine. I think that that's probably one of the biggest incentives. I've heard of other businesses that, are giving gift cards, or might be giving some additional bonuses to employees who receive a vaccine.
That's a great idea, because I run a provider for a family member of mine, and there are some staff that do not want to get the vaccine. Some of them already have their second dose, but to incentivize that, I think is a good idea. So I'm going to incorporate some of that.
Good.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Now, have you noticed that, are there any companies that have increased hiring? We'll start first off during COVID, and then, specific companies that may have increased right after, as we're kind of making our way through this.
Sure. So, during COVID, we, as far as an increase in hiring for COVID, during COVID, the healthcare industry, naturally, a lot of the housekeeping, environmental services, there was an increase in that need. Also an increase in individuals who would, screen people coming into a business screen them for temperature checks, that sort of thing. We did see an increase in that. Also, Lowe's and the Home Depot and your home improvement stores definitely saw an increase. We actually were able to place some people in those sorts of stores because everybody's home, they're ready to improve and work on their homes and things. But that's probably about it as far as during COVID for the increase. But now, yes, we're definitely seeing increases now.
I've read articles about the amount of projects that people are doing around their house, and then the cost of lumber going through the roof. It's been like quadrupled or times 5 in the last few months. And to be able to, well, you're at home, and maybe you got a little bit more time and you're like, well, I've always wanted to tinker on this thing. So you go at it, but that makes sense that maybe Home Depot and Lowe's were hiring a couple more there. Now, you said that you mentioned quite a bit. We're really hiring as we're getting out of this, and that's the manufacturing, the automotive. Now, when you say automotive, I recently went down to Tuscaloosa this weekend and passed the Mercedes plant. That place is huge.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean when you mean automotive, or do you mean smaller?
No, I do mean that. Yes, the automotive, what they call the 2 and 3 tier suppliers to Mercedes. So those manufacturing locations that are, literally making the parts that go on the Mercedes vehicles. Mm-hmm. They have always, of course, been doing production during COVID, but now because Mercedes is ramping up and doing more with electric vehicles and opening a new plant for the battery, building of the batteries for these vehicles, their suppliers are ramping up to make sure that they have the workforce needed to meet the needs of Mercedes. And I would think, that's the same, of course, for Hyundai and Honda and a lot of the other manufacturers in Alabama. And, what we're seeing is kind of a coming together, so to speak, of your post-COVID return to work issues, and then what was happening before COVID-19. And that was the increase in the workforce development system within the state of Alabama. And so back in 2016, I know that sounds like that may be a ways away, but in 2016, the federal law that kind of governs the workforce system within all the states, it changed into the Workforce Innovations and Opportunities Act. And so with that change, and naturally there's going to take a few years for the agencies that have to put these federal laws in place to kind of turn the ship and make some changes within what they're doing. But the focus of the federal law was to really go to those employers and say, what do you need? What do you need in your workforce? What kind of training do your workers need? What kind of training do new workers need to already have before they come to you? And so that had been in the works, and the training had been established. And the new focus was, we're not going to rate an agency on, how many people you put to work. We're going to rate the agency on how many people you train, or how many people that are underserved populations, like individuals with disabilities, or individuals who have been receiving welfare, TANF, or youth that have maybe dropped out of high school. So how well are you getting training for these individuals and credentials or skill gains? And so a lot of training was put in place. The employers were looking for trained individuals, and it was just about to ramp up, and then COVID-19 happens, right? So everything comes to a halt. They're not doing as much hiring, but now that things are starting to get a lot faster, these employers are now looking for skilled laborers. On top of that, during COVID-19, especially in the central part of Alabama, you have Amazon coming in. And then you have places like Buc-ee's coming in. And they're paying $15 an hour, right? And so they're snatching up a lot of the workforce. And so the automotive industry are like, we need the skilled laborers, and we need the shift work, and we need this and that. And so they are, right now doing a really big push for hiring and looking for individuals who are reliable, that are going to show up after they get the interview, and they're not going to, what's that new term, ghost the employer. Yeah. So they're not going to just say, okay, thank you for the job, and then not show up on day one. So employers are like, we'll train you. We offer apprenticeship opportunities for you, where an employer will pay for the skill gain, for you to get the skills, for you to get the training. And so there's a lot of opportunities out there right now. We just need individuals with disabilities to know that, vocational rehabilitation is here. We're here to connect you to these companies, to connect you to the training, to help you along, what the buzz term now is career pathway. So, if you have a career pathway, then you can get on and off that pathway at any given time. You could come in, get some training, work as, like, let's take the healthcare industry, work as a, personal care attendant, and then maybe come back onto the pathway, get additional training, and maybe get work as a surgical tech, or, nursing assistant, or LPN, RN, those sorts of things. So it's a pathway that you follow to get to that employment. Same thing with automotive industry, hospitality industry, construction industry. There's a lot of training and opportunities out there now.
I will say, as an employer, with the provider business model and hiring caregivers for my family member, that's always one of my biggest fears, is like, yeah, we found somebody that we think would be a great fit, but are they going to show up continually? And so we find that out in the first few weeks, first few months. But once you have a great team member like that, it's a lot easier to help them along that path, than trying to find somebody new. So I think that the employers are seeing that the cost of acquisition, rather than the cost of helping that employee mature, is working out in their favor when they're doing these types of trainings and what have you. Exactly. And you're seeing, I imagine, during the internet age and the electronic age, the skills that employers are asking for are very technical. And so are you seeing that there's more need for basic knowledge of computers and internet literacy?
Oh, yes, most definitely. The internet, computer literacy, very important. What else is important, though, is to know how to, not just your, Word programs and, your Outlook, the email system that most businesses use, but to know how to maneuver and know that, you click on this to open your next set of data sheets or things like that. So it's that type of information that individuals, really need to know and learn about. And there's training out there available for that, especially for individuals with disabilities. Our agency has actually a license through Microsoft that we can offer some free training online, so someone can do it from their home, and get them trained to increase their skills on computer literacy, the internet, and then your basic, processing software.
Yeah, I feel like it was a year ago, everyone was really nervous to get on a video production like this. And everyone's like, now we'll do it over the phone or a chain of emails. And now everyone knows the word Zoom, like, yeah, we'll just do it through a Zoom.
Right.
And so continuing to learn there.
We Zoom with our consumers. So instead of them coming into the office, we'll Zoom with them and do interviews and some job skill training. Well, not job skills, but, interview skills, career development, your soft skills, those sorts of things. So we utilize Zoom a lot with our consumers as well.
I had a virtual doctor's appointment. I was like,
Yeah.
I actually want to come into the office next time. I wanted some blood work drawn, my normal physical.
Right.
But it's amazing what you can do with
Mhm.
this new tech. Now, does ADRS contract out some of these services? Like if like for if you are familiar with Isable
Um,
and Lorenzo Brown.
yes, yes, yes. And so we do. Because, we work with so many individuals in any given year, we do partner, we call them community rehabilitation partners. And so those are entities, nonprofits that we work very closely with to help us in providing a lot of services to our consumers. Some may be job readiness training, that soft skill training that I was talking to you about, some career exploration, certainly some job development, job placement assistance, and then also for providing services to our students that are in high school, our transition services. So yes, we do partner with local. So the name threw me off because there's a lot of different names throughout the state. But yes, so I do know Lorenzo, great guy.
I am going to put a little plug for Mr. Brown and Isable. They do a monthly broadcast with us, and my family member has gone to their weekly social skills class. And so, if you're in the Birmingham area and looking for some of those computer skills, they have a great computer lab where they can kind of teach you how to get around that. So,
Yeah.
and if you could talk a little bit about post-COVID syndrome, and this is new to me, post-COVID syndrome, or what is being termed COVID long haulers. I've
Mhm.
never heard those two terms before.
Okay, so yes, this is something that we're seeing is starting to trickle in within our state. Now, we are also seeing it across the nation, hearing stories about the effects of post-COVID or the long hauler syndrome. And basically, for individuals who really had a very hard time with COVID-19. So these are individuals who, had the pneumonia. Maybe they had some very odd symptoms, balance issues. We've seen individuals who have now developed visual impairments and hearing impairments, long-term limitations from having had COVID. And so that would be the COVID-19 syndrome or the long haulers. And it's still so new. It's like they're still looking at, is this going to be a long-term thing for somebody, or is it going to eventually get better? So somebody who perhaps had COVID-19 and pneumonia and had to go into the hospital and was in the ICU, and maybe they were put on a ventilator or a BiPAP machine where they bypassed and the machine did the breathing for the person. So that in and of itself can cause a lot of
like your body's
fatigue,
not
right?
Yeah.
Fatigue, respiratory issues, and then they also call it brain fog or the COVID fog. And a lot of people actually have had the COVID fog without having been in the hospital. I mean, I had COVID in December and I had a very mild case. I was very blessed. But I do know that when I returned to work, my thoughts were jumbled. And so I literally had to just, I probably talked everybody's ear off. I'm a talker anyway, but I did better speaking everything instead of trying to think it through in my brain. I had to speak it out for a long time for those synapses to kick back in. And so who knows why that happens, but we're seeing that as well, the brain fog that goes along with COVID. So we're seeing multiple things from post-COVID.
Now, when I first read those two phrases, I thought of the physical things there, the long haulers, but is there also a mental aspect of somebody? Is it addressing that as well?
Well, yes and no. So post-COVID or the long haulers or long COVID is another term for it. Those are individuals who literally COVID-19 impacted their body in some way. And again, it could be mentally, it could be the brain fog. It could be the balance, the breathing, that sort of thing. But you know what we're also seeing are some, I guess, additional impact of COVID-19 for some individuals. So when we talk about mental health issues, we tend, well, what we're seeing, or I know just people I personally know, that we're sent home to work. Okay, so maybe have been professional positions or their office type work that could be done from home, and they were sent home to work, and they're still at home working. So they went from a very social environment to going to home, and that has caused quite a bit of depression.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're still getting, their salary and their income, but it's that lack of social, socialism that happens at work.
We're social beings. We need that interaction.
Absolutely. And then, some of the other things that we're kind of seeing as a result are individuals who may have lost their job, they lost their health insurance. Maybe, there's an incident. Now, this is from another state, but, a gentleman who had type 2 diabetes, and he lost his ability to get his medication. And so his diabetes just went haywire, and the neuropathy kicked in, and he has now had to have, part of his leg amputated. So you see the long,
even though he may not have had COVID,
right?
The impact of COVID on his lifestyle.
Exactly. And then, there was another story of, individuals that are working from home, and you're not driving to and from work anymore. So maybe you're now off the clock, and you're just going to have a little toddy, a little drink to relax, right? So one drink turns into 2 drinks and into 3 drinks. And now you have somebody who has developed an alcohol, a problem with alcohol, or, maybe some other substance abuse because, not at work, not drinking on the job, or, other, drugs or whatnot. So it's not, just everywhere, but it is some interesting side effects, I guess you could say, of COVID-19 in general that I think we all need to be aware of, just for our friends and family, but employers need to be aware of as well. So if you're starting to bring your workforce back, back into the office, then if you see some changes in behavior, that might be some
pay attention to it a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think everybody, at the highest levels did absolutely everything that they could for this pandemic. It was new to a lot of people. Most people have never gone through that thing in their lifetime. But I'm really interested to see what 10, 25-year studies come out with, versus we were able to get the vaccine out. This is also the mental health aspect that we did pay attention to. There were 10-year gaps there that we really need to do. So I think those studies are going to be really interesting to read down the line.
I agree with you. I think youth employment has definitely been affected. Most youth go to work in your hospitality industries, in your retail industry, and that just basically slowed down. I think another thing that is going to be interesting is, the huge number of retirements that we have seen. Because again, people are like, hey, I really like being at home, and so I can retire, I'm going to retire. And so now you're going to have a lot more younger people coming into the workforce. You've lost that long-term knowledge base, and it will take several years to build back up to the knowledge and skill that goes when people retire. So
I think as an employer, you're going to have to invest pretty heavy in training right now, because you don't have that senior management. They're kind of out the door right now. We're also going to see cases of COVID jumping. So how do you feel about, you think enough people are getting vaccinated in different demographics?
I don't think so. I will be honest. People are not getting the vaccine for whatever reasons. Now, individuals with disabilities, there is that true concern that, the vaccine may exacerbate the disability. They may be more prone to having side effects and that sort of thing. I think that the younger generation, the population, your college students, they're not, opting for the vaccination as well. So there's still going to be that risk of the spread of COVID-19 in the workplace when everybody starts coming back into the office. So universal precautions are still going to be there. You're still going to have the PPE, various things like that. And because of that, you're still going to have individuals with disabilities hesitant to be back at work.
I'll be honest, I was a little bit hesitant to get my vaccine right off the bat. But I've got my first one. I've got my second one actually tomorrow. And then it's a week or two after that, and then should be good. I hope that that's it, and that we don't have to get one every 6 months, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
I keep hearing, the next thing we hear right now is India, and there's a huge outbreak, and restricting traveling. And then my mind kind of goes, well, if we've already got the vaccine, then we don't have to worry about it. But is it something new that the vaccine's not able to attack a new variant? So I just hope we get out of this. We don't have to think about it.
Will it become just like the flu? Who knows? And that.
Yeah, you just get your shot every year.
That's right.
Well, as we kind of come to a close today, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think an individual that's seeking employment or a family member that has a child in high school could really benefit from hearing?
I would encourage any listeners out there who are looking for activities or events or things to do to, give us a call. We're online. We're also have the number to our state office. I could give that out if we need that.
Please do that, and then we'll go ahead and put it in chat.
Okay, great. So it's 334-293-7500. And that, basically just gets you to the state office, and we can, find out from where you live, connect you locally, do that through our website as well. And just Google ADRS, Alabama Department of Rehabilitation Services, and it'll pull us up. We have a YouTube channel with a lot of stories and resources on there as well. If you're a business and you're looking for assistance in, recruiting and hiring, or, maybe retaining somebody who has post-COVID syndrome, or maybe looking at needing to accommodate an individual with a disability to reduce the threat of exposure for COVID-19, those are sorts of things that we can do to assist as well. So I encourage you to reach out. Definitely touch base with us, and we're glad to assist any way that we can with anything. A lot of companies are doing virtual job fairs and connecting. They're doing video interviews, various things like that, and so we can get connected with that.
So you guys have been up and running this entire time, and now as everyone's starting to get their vaccine, you guys are really ramping it up and kind of helping those individuals get back up to where they were, and those companies get back to where they were and where they want to be.
Absolutely.
Well, we really appreciate you having, spending time with us this morning and informing us of what's going on in the state. A lot of this I didn't know or didn't think of. It's just out of my realm. So I appreciate you spreading the knowledge.
More than happy to, anytime.
And if anything else changes, we're going to have to reach out and see if you'll come back on and notify us.
I'll be glad to. Absolutely. No problem at all.
Mrs. Dawson, at this point, on behalf of the Alabama Care community, I'd like to say thank you once again, and we wish you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks for what y'all do.
All right. See you next time.
Okay. Bye.
All right, bye.